Okay, so uh, let's dive into this pretty complex situation at Chong Bok, right there on
Uh-huh.
the Thai-Cambodia border. We've got a whole stack of sources you've shared, articles, reports, and the mission here for this deep dive is really to cut through the noise and give you a clear picture.
Right. We're trying to move past just the headlines, the latest clash, and really understand the layers, the history, the geography, the economics, and how it all connects to this specific spot.
And Chong Bok was in the news again just now, basically, May 28th, 2025, reports of that border clash between Thai and Cambodian soldiers.
Yeah.
It's obviously a key location, this Emerald Triangle, as the sources call it.
It really is. It's that point where Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia meet, a proper tri-border area. And like you said, one with a surprising amount of, well, history and current relevance based on this material.
So using these sources, we're going to try and unpack what Chong Bok actually is, why it keeps becoming this flashpoint, the history behind it all, the economic side too, and then zero in on what's been happening recently leading up to May 28th. Really
Yeah.
get that full picture.
Okay, so maybe start with the place itself. The sources put Chong Bok in Nam Yuen district. That's in Thailand's Ubon Ratchathani province.
And that strategic position, that's really key to everything else, isn't it? Being the meeting point for three countries.
Precisely. And that's where the name Emerald Triangle comes from. The sources describe it as, yeah, fertile, green, but its importance is really geopolitical.
Emerald Triangle sounds nice, but it's not just a tiny dot, right? The sources suggest it covers a decent amount of ground across all three nations.
It does, yeah. The estimate is around 12 square kilometers for the whole connecting area. So in Thailand, that's parts of Ubon Ratchathani, Nam Yuen mainly, but also into Sisaket province.
And on the other sides.
In Laos, it's parts of Champasak province, specifically Mong Manlapamak, and also touches Salavan. Then in Cambodia, you're looking at Preah Vihear province, Chongsan district mainly, but also Odar Minchi and Stung Treng.
So this critical junction point. But it also carries, well, a pretty difficult past, doesn't it? The sources mention Chong Bok had a specific historical identity.
They do. They talk about the Chong Bok battlefield period from 1985 to 1987. And this wasn't just, a small incident.
What actually happened back then?
Well, that was when Thai forces clashed pretty heavily with Vietnamese forces. Vietnam was occupying Cambodia at the time, you see. And these fights at Chong Bok were part of Thailand defending its border during that whole regional situation.
So the memory of a major battle hangs over this tri-border area. And fast forward to today, the sources describe Chong Bok as a, quote, disputed border area and overlapping area between Thailand and Cambodia. Why is it still so contested?
Well, the material suggests three main things keeping the tensions simmering. First, and this is the big one, the border itself just isn't clearly marked out. It hasn't been fully demarcated.
Right, so both sides feel they have a claim to certain patches of land.
Exactly. That leads to overlapping claims. It's unavoidable. Second, you've got the military presence. Both countries keep troops there, watching closely. Any move can be seen as provocative.
And the third factor sounds almost mundane, but clearly dangerous.
Yeah, simple misunderstanding. Sometimes clashes just happen because of bad communication or different interpretations of what someone's doing on the ground. It's a tense environment. Small mistakes can blow up.
Sounds like walking on eggshells constantly. And speaking of the ground itself, there's a safety note in the sources too.
No, yeah, that's important. While parts of the area, like, say, Phuchong Na Yoi National Park, might be okay for visitors, any place marked as prohibited or dangerous, you absolutely have to stay away.
Because of that history we mentioned. Old landmines, maybe, or just ongoing military stuff.
Precisely. The past is literally still buried there in some places.
Okay, so turning to the more recent events. That May 28th clash wasn't completely out of the blue. The sources suggest tensions were rising earlier in 2025.
That's right. There were a few incidents before that. Like back on February 18th, 2025, there was a Thai protest because Cambodian civilians apparently sang their national anthem at Prasat Tamon Tam Temple.
And that wasn't the first time, was it?
No, the sources mention it happened before, October 2024. It just shows how these historical temple sites become focal points for, well, nationalist feeling. Then there was that fire, March 1st, 2025, at the Trimuk Pavilion near Chong Bok.
Which was meant to be a symbol of friendship between all three countries, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. A fire there seems significant.
It does. Cambodia explained later on March 5th that it spread from a village fire. But still, given the location, it raised eyebrows. And then things really seemed to escalate just before the May 28th clash.
You mean the incident on May 18th?
Yes. Sources reported Cambodian soldiers were seen building some kind of base, digging trenches, bringing in more troops, specifically at Hill 745 Chong Bok. That's a direct military action in a sensitive zone.
And how did the Thais respond to that?
Well, Thai forces went to negotiate on the spot. And according to these reports, the Cambodians did agree to stop digging, pull back from that specific overlapping spot, and even meet unarmed for talks and joint patrols. But, and this is important, the sources say those agreements were just about that specific May 18th event.
Okay, so a temporary fix for that particular buildup. But clearly the underlying tension hadn't gone away. Which brings us right to the clash itself.
Exactly. May 28th, 2025, Chong Bok Ubon Ratchathani. Happened early, about 5:45 a.m. And thankfully it was short, maybe 10 minutes.
Right, but this is where looking closely at the different sources is crucial, because the accounts of what happened, well, they conflict.
Absolutely. So the Thai version from their army spokesperson is that Cambodian soldiers entered an area Thailand claims, going against some prior understanding. A Thai liaison team went to talk, but a Cambodian security unit misunderstood things and fired first. The Thais say they then returned fire.
Okay, so the Thai narrative is misunderstanding, self-defense in a disputed zone. What about the Cambodian side?
Their account from their army spokesperson and Ministry of Defense is quite different. They say the Thai army fired first from trenches that Cambodia claims are part of a long-established Cambodian base, and they reported one Cambodian soldier died.
So direct contradictions. Who fired first? And casualties only on one side versus potentially both. This is where national perspectives really diverge in the reporting.
It really shows how hard it is to get one clear story, especially right after something like this happens.
So how did the shooting actually stop?
It ended quickly after officials on both sides got on the phone. The Cambodian Deputy Commander of Support Division 3 and the Thai Deputy Commander of the Saranuri Task Force talked, agreed to a ceasefire, and agreed to stay put at the clash site for the moment.
Okay, so direct communication stopped the immediate violence. But then came the official talks, and here again, the sources showed disagreement about what was actually agreed.
Yes, the army commanders from both countries met the next day, May 29th. General Phonphen Klaiplodthuk for Thailand and General Mao Sophen for Cambodia. Initial reports said they agreed both sides would pull back 200 meters from where the clash happened.
That sounds like a standard de-escalation move. Sensible.
It does. But, and this is a really key point in the sources, one source details a Cambodian statement about that meeting, outlining 4 points they say were agreed. And point 4 apparently states specifically that Cambodia will not withdraw from the conflict point. They argued they were there before the 2000 MOU was even signed.
Hold on. So the Cambodian statement says both sides agreed and accepted that Cambodia wouldn't withdraw. That directly contradicts the idea of a mutual pullback.
That's the contradiction the sources highlight. The Cambodian statement reportedly framed their refusal to withdraw based on prior presence as something both commanders agreed and accepted. It really underscores the deep disagreement about the territory itself, even in the immediate aftermath of a clash. Interpretations of the same meeting seem miles apart.
Wow. That's a pretty significant difference in understanding, or at least portraying, the outcome.
It is. Now, the sources do agree that both commanders said they'd use the existing mechanisms to sort things out. Things like the Joint Boundary Committee, the JBC, and the General Border Committee, or GBC.
And what exactly are the JBC and GBC? Can you just clarify?
Sure. They're basically established joint committees, officials, military people from both sides. They're the formal channels set up precisely to discuss border issues, demarcation, manage things along the border. They also referenced the 2000 MOU Memorandum of Understanding, which is supposed to provide the framework for figuring out the land boundary. Cambodia also apparently stressed needing mutual respect for sovereignty to stop future clashes.
And outside of those military talks, what were the top political leaders saying?
Well, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen came out pretty strongly afterwards, said he'd send more troops and equipment to the border. On the Thai side, the army command covering that region asked people not to share pictures of troop movements online, worried about national security.
So, looking at this clash and the earlier stuff in 2025, you really see this isn't new, is it? The sources make it clear this is part of a long-running pattern.
Oh, absolutely. One source lays out a timeline showing incidents, sometimes really serious ones, popping up again and again over the last 20 years, and they almost always center on these disputed zones.
It feels like a cycle tied to these unresolved issues. Where else have major conflicts happened apart from Chong Bok?
Well, the really big ones recently, the sources point to the temple areas, Prasat Previhair, of course, and also Prasat Tamuntam and Prasat Takrabi. That was mainly between 2008 and 2011.
And those were serious fights, right? Not just small skirmishes.
No, they were intense. The sources mention the 2011 clashes involved things like artillery fire. There were significant casualties on both sides back then.
And the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, they've even been involved with Priya Vihaar.
Yes, they ruled on the temple itself way back in 1962, gave it to Cambodia. Then in 2013, they had to clarify the area immediately around the temple. So even though this latest clash was at Chong Bok, those temple disputes, the ICJ rulings, they're all part of the bigger, older story of this border problem.
So it keeps coming back to the fundamental problem, actually drawing the line on the map.
Exactly. The sources say the root issue is often different interpretations of old maps that both Thailand and Cambodia use, plus the joint demarcation efforts just move incredibly slowly. Even with things like the 2000 MOU, technical disagreements, like how exactly you apply the watershed principle, really complicate things.
The watershed principle.
Mm-hmm.
Remind me how that works for borders and why it's tricky here.
Right, so the basic idea is the border follows the highest ridgeline, the line where water flows one way towards one country and the other way towards the other. It's common in hilly areas, but actually applying it on the ground, especially with old maps or complex terrain, can be tough. You might disagree on which ridge is the actual watershed or how to interpret the surveys. It leads to different border lines for each side.
Yeah, I could see how that wouldn't be straightforward if you can't even agree on this starting point, essentially.
Precisely.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Because despite all this conflict and tension, the sources also talk about a really different aspect of the relationship, the economic ties. They seem quite strong.
It's a strange contrast, isn't it? Tense on the military side, but economically, they're actually very close, and trade keeps growing.
Just how significant is that economic link?
Well, the numbers are pretty striking. Bilateral trade in just the first half of 2024 was over $5 billion. That's up more than 20% from the year before. And they've even set this target, $15 billion in trade by 2025. Plus plans to develop border areas to boost trade even more.
So there's a massive economic reason for stability. And Thailand's role in Cambodia's economy goes beyond just trade, right?
Oh, yeah. The sources say Thailand is Cambodia's sixth largest foreign investor. And maybe more visibly, Thailand is the #1 source of tourists going into Cambodia. These are real connections.
But these economic ties, they can't be completely separate from the border conflict, surely. The sources showed past tension hurting trade.
They did. Yeah, the material points out trade actually dropped quite a bit, over 22% back in 2009 when border tensions were really high. And it's not just goods, services get hit too, like Cambodians who cross the border for healthcare in Thai towns.
And thinking about these recent clashes, do the sources give any sense of the potential economic damage?
One source uses an assessment from 2011, but it shows the kind of impact. It estimated, maybe a limited loss, about 1.1 billion Thai baht, if a conflict was sorted out quickly, like within a month.
Okay, manageable perhaps?
Right. But if things dragged on for, say, 3 months and borders started closing, the estimated impact jumped massively, maybe closer to 3 billion baht. And that hits specific Thai exports, hard daily stuff, cars, parts, things that rely on that overland border trade. It hurts the local economies in places like Sisaket and Surin, their trade, their tourism, and it makes businesses hesitate about investing on both sides.
Is Thailand facing much competition in the Cambodian market these days?
Yes, definitely. The sources mention Vietnam as a big competitor, partly because the exchange rate often makes their goods cheaper there. And China's presence is huge, too, through aid and lots of competing products.
So even with that competition, why is Cambodia still so important for Thai businesses?
Well, the sources stress that despite the competition, Cambodia is a really vital market for certain Thai things that maybe wouldn't sell as easily elsewhere, like agricultural surplus or maybe lower-grade industrial goods. So keeping that border open and trade flowing smoothly isn't just about hitting targets. It's crucial for specific Thai industries and producers.
Makes sense. That border instability is a direct threat to those economic lifelines.
Okay, stepping away from the official and economic levels, what about people on the ground? Particularly in Cambodia, how are they reacting to this recent clash, especially with the report of a soldier killed?
Yeah, the sources picked up on a noticeable reaction on Cambodian social media. There was this campaign calling for a boycott of Thai goods.
And what was the idea behind that push? Well, according to the material, it was framed as taking a stand against what they saw as Thai actions, promoting local Cambodian products, boosting national pride, and just reacting to perceived negative attitudes from Thailand after the incident.
But was everyone in Cambodia behind this boycott idea?
No, the sources show it was much more mixed. You had some people strongly supporting it, really leaning into national pride, or maybe existing negative feelings about Thailand. But then you had many others expressing real doubt about whether it could even work.
Why the doubt? What were they saying?
They were basically listing all the essential Thai products they use every single day. Detergent, toothpaste, cooking oil, snacks, even building materials. It just highlighted how dependent many Cambodian consumers are on Thai imports for everyday stuff.
Right, that makes a full boycott sound pretty difficult in practice.
It does, and some commenters were more pragmatic, saying, look, our economies are linked, a boycott hurts both sides. Others just saw it as a short-lived burst of nationalism, not something sustainable. And people also mentioned things like how popular Thai TV shows are in Cambodia, how many Cambodians visit Thailand as tourists, and how many work there. So it paints a much more complex picture than just a simple boycott call.
Yeah, a real mix of opinions reflecting that complicated relationship. And in that kind of atmosphere, the sources also mention something about information or misinformation.
Yes, there was that joint statement from the Thai and Cambodian Journalists Associations. Quite relevant. They basically urged media and social media users in both countries to be really careful, not spread unverified stuff or fake news about the border.
Why did they feel the need to say that?
Because they pointed out that in tense times like these, bad information can easily create confusion, stir up nationalism, and frankly be used by people who want to make things worse. It really emphasizes how important responsible reporting and just thinking before you share is during a crisis. So if we try and pull all these different pieces together, you've got the geography, the Emerald Triangle, the deep history, the memory of conflict.
And then the ongoing dispute itself tied to those unclear borderlines, the different interpretations, like we saw with the conflicting reports about the May 29th meeting outcome.
Right. Then layer on the very real economic connections, that huge trade volume existing right alongside the risk of conflict, causing major disruption for businesses, for people's livelihoods.
And then there's the public reaction, the nationalism, the potential for social media to amplify things, adding another whole dimension alongside the official diplomatic and military moves.
And while you have these mechanisms, the JBC, the GBC, the 2000 MOU, they are the agreed ways forward. But history shows, and even these recent events suggest, actually resolving these deep-seated border issues is just a very slow, very complex, and often pretty fragile process.
So this deep dive, it's really taken us from Chong Bok's geography and his past as a battlefield, right through the complexities of modern border issues, the intertwined economies, and how all this affects people and public feeling.
It really lays bare the many, many dimensions of what looks, maybe from afar, like just another border skirmish. There's so much more beneath the surface.
So here's maybe a final thought for you to consider after listening to all this. Even with strong economic reasons to cooperate and official channels designed to solve problems, how do things like long-held historical grievances, those stubborn, unclear lines on a map, and surges of nationalist feeling keep shaping the reality on the ground, leading to repeated tension in places like the Emerald Triangle?
And maybe also, how vital is it to understand all these layers from battlefields decades ago to social media campaigns today if you really want to grasp what's driving events in this crucial part of the region?